I did have a presentation that I was going to put up on the high dollar stuff, but I believe in technology, so I thought it'd work. So anyways, I will talk from notes rather than putting something up. Dr. Anwar asked me to talk a little bit today about some of the problems and issues that come from building and running e-business solutions. I want to give you a little bit of background of mine, just because it relates to some of the problems that we see today that people have. And they're things that have come from way back when. I've been in the software development industry for about 10 years, with corporate systems for about 7 of those years. And back in the early to mid-'80s, the problems that have been pulled forward became readily apparent. A lot of those issues Lloyd touched on a little bit. And this kind of goes back to the insurance industry, but they'll have a underwriting system that houses the policy information, those types of things running on one system. They'll have their claims administration component running on a separate application, different operating platform, different databases, HR information, human resource information running on another platform again. Taking information and being able to consolidate it and utilize it within an organization was an issue back then. It's an issue today when you start looking at developing e-business solutions. Those kinds of things have just continued to get bigger and bigger as new systems come on and as you start to have the reach that the internet provides to do e-business solutions. One of the biggest problems I think today that companies start with in building an e-business application is a lack of total planning within an organization. When you look at e-business development, you've got to go back to the very foundation of your company and say, what is the real business reason that we're developing this application for? If you don't have a strategy that encompasses everything that you do, long term it will be a miserable failure. And we've seen that happen over and over again with companies building a site, thinking we'll put something out there, the world will be ours, money will flow, and it just does not happen that way. One of the key things that you need to ask early on is, who does this site service? Is it the external customer? Are you actually selling commerce products over it? Is it a business-to-business site where you're working with middlemen in the distribution channel? And how does it impact all of the people in that whole component of the business? If you don't know where you're going with the site and what you're trying to accomplish with it, just putting a site out there will not get you where you want to be. What impacts on the business is this going to have? And that goes beginning with systems. The impacts are going to be radical. If you look at it from the distribution side of things, how do you currently today sell your products to companies, and how do you fulfill the sales after they happen? That is going to change when you get into an e-business model. If you start looking at it to how does it scale within our environment? If you start out with a very small application on a small system, how is it going to scale through your organization as it grows? How do you have your servers, if you put it on NT to begin with, let's say, how does it grow out of that? How do you move into a Unix environment? Will the application allow you to do that? Will the database be supported across multiple platforms? A number of the systems types issues that you have to ask. How is it going to impact the personnel within your company? In looking at it today, you have an order come in, someone takes it over the phone. It's now going to come in over an internet connection. How does that information then get transported to your accounting department? Are you going to integrate that to the back office systems that support your accounting, that support your distribution components? How do you get it into the mail? How do you track it to know that it was mailed? How do you support that customer with your personnel? So it'll impact every part of the personnel in your organization. How does it impact your customer today? If your customers traditionally have been in a non-technical environment, let's say you're in the plumbing industry, maybe they have not evolved where they're using technology extensively. Are you going to still be able to service them correctly? Will they come to your site and buy it? Those are the kinds of issues with the customers that will be major. Another one that companies need to look at is how is it going to impact existing revenue streams? If you have a sales force today, it's a commission sales force that sells to territories, and you put an internet site up and people can come from anywhere to buy, what's that going to do to your sales within your current model that you have? All those kinds of things will be impacted, cause problems within the organization from a personnel standpoint. There are a number of issues around that side of the house that you must look at. In looking at it and looking at all of those components, I think it'll come down to a couple of keys. Do you build it yourself or do you outsource it? And when I say build it yourself, that would mean a number of components of that. The actual design and structure of the site. And in doing that, you're going to have to evaluate a lot of things that you do internally. Do you have IT personnel that understand development of those types of applications? What types of applications are you running today? Are you going to try to integrate it into your back office shops? If so, that's going to take a fairly experienced, fairly knowledgeable IT staff to do that. Do you have the resources internally to make that happen? If not, outsourcing may be an option for the design and building of it. From a systems expertise, do you currently today just run a small LAN internally? Are you going to look at thinking that you're going to host this application yourself? We're now talking a 24/7 application. It's got to be integrated into the systems that clear your transactions. The types of systems that you run will be web servers, which are significantly different than running your Microsoft Word product that you have today. So there are a lot of things that you've got to look at internally with the system side of the house and with software development side of the house to say, can we do it internally or do we need to talk about outsourcing it? After you get the site created, where are you going to host it? Are you going to build the applications and servers that have redundancy to house it in-house? Lloyd mentioned that it needs to be a 24/7 application. What happens if you have one server that's your web server and it crashes? You're down. Do you build redundant systems? Can you afford to do that internally? And then if you do, can you afford to have redundant connections to an internet so that if one of the providers is down, that you have access through another provider to do that? Or do you look at outsourcing that to a company to host it? If you choose to outsource it to host, the company that you host with, you need to look at them very closely because the same issues that you would have, they will have. Are they multi-homed? Do they connect to multiple internet backbone providers? Do they have redundant systems so that if one of their servers is down, is your product still run across on another server so that you're not down? So you need to look very closely at those things when you talk about outsourcing in that type of a hosted environment. Our company has done a lot of development. We're an alliance business partner with Deloitte & Touche, and kind of comes full circle to the operational risk management industry. The marketplace that we're doing a majority of our work in today is European. And Dr. Anwar asked for us to address some of the issues that we see that are differences between what happens in the United States market versus what happens in the European marketplace. Basically, the Europeans in total are somewhat lagging in technology in a number of areas. In software, a number of releases behind what most of the companies in the United States are running. Typically, we're finding many of the big institutions will be still running Windows 95, Office 97, some of those kinds of products that do not support the very latest in security, that don't support the very latest in Java applets, some of the things that you need to support in developing applications that are e-business related. Software encryption has become a big issue. Just recently, the government decided that the United States government decided that they were going to relax some of the requirements for companies that are exporting encryption software into the marketplace to allow some of that to go into the European marketplace. But still today, when you're looking at e-business solutions, some of the very high-end data encryption pieces will not run in the European marketplace. It's not legal to export those with applications to those markets. So that's an issue. And then Richard mentioned earlier the telecom infrastructure. The wireline infrastructure is significantly behind what you United States today. They are somewhat leaders in wireless, LMDS, and some of the high-end wireless broadband technologies are beginning to become better entrenched in the European marketplace than they are here, due to that fact that there is not infrastructure to compete with them for wired technologies versus wireless. So the marketplaces are radically different. Will they get somewhat similar? Not for quite some time, I think. But the general pieces are that if you're looking to develop a solution that is business related, you need to start from ground zero and look at your organization in its entirety. How do we do business today? How do we sell to our customers? How do we service our customers? And then look at the model that you're talking about creating and say, how are we going to do it in this other environment? And how do they coexist for some period of time, potentially for a long period of time? You're not going to completely move away from everything you do today with an e-business solution to move to tomorrow. So you've got to see how they cohabitate together within your organization, and how do you support them? Probably the last and the biggest issue that we found in companies looking at building e-business solutions is that they fail to think about how do you market that solution. Today, the way you advertise, the way you do mailings, all of those kinds of things are geared around an organization that's not doing business in an online type environment. And companies make mistake after mistake because they're thinking we'll just put our site up and we'll have lots of business. That does not happen. You have to have a very good strategy with an advertising agency, whether it's in-house or out-of-house, to say, how now do we get the word out about this new way that we're doing business so that we drive people to that site? You're going to spend significant dollars building this product. You're going to need to spend significant time in planning and dollars to see how we market this product so that the word gets out. The proliferation of websites has created, I think, somewhat of a misconception in the customer's mind that search engines will drive business to your business. And early on, search engines were very good because the number of sites that were out there were somewhat limited. Search engines would repopulate themselves, would find sites, and typically you could, if you structured your site right, put the right words in, those kinds of things, meta tags within the product that you built, people would find you, the search engines would find you, and people would be able to get to you. You'd come up relatively high on their list. Today, there's no telling where you'll end up with a search engine with your name on that list. So you need to plan other things within your organization to get the word out to your customers or to potential customers to drive them to that site. And that's probably the biggest key, the biggest mistake that we've seen people make over and over and over is not planning how do you get the word out once you spend all the dollars to create that very wonderful site. Because it doesn't matter how good it looks, if people don't know how to get to it, you'll never sell anything from it, whether it's to the outside marketplace or whether it's a business-to-business site. You have to get the word out correctly to make it successful. That's basically all I have today. Are there questions?